Fantastic week. Hope you're ready for this final primetime show of the week so far. We are going to get into the NFL's announcement today about vaccinations, not mandatory vaccinations, but the new vaccination forfeiture policy that the NFL put into place today, as reported earlier by the NFL Network. We will get into it at great length. And I'll tell you why I think a lot of people are missing the point with this. We're going to have a nuanced discussion. We're going to have an intellectually stimulating discussion. We're not going to yell at each other, but we're going to lay out the facts as we see them. And then I'm going to explain to you why I think a lot of people are missing the point on this. We'll get into the NFL and college football. Which league do we believe sees a forfeit first? Because both at this point, between the Big 12, the SEC, the Pac-12, and the Big 10 have said if teams do get sick and are not able to field competitive rosters on Saturdays in college football, that forfeits are in play. The NFL has made that same policy based on lack of vaccinations. I'll explain in more detail later on in the show. It's a Thursday night, so of course we have the Brymac Bounce Back candidate of the week that we look forward to getting into with you. A lot of stuff to get into, a lot of good conversations to have over the course of this final primetime show of this week. Before we do that, I need you guys to share this show, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook Live, Twitch, or YouTube. If you are hanging out with us on Twitter, go ahead and retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, like Real Nick Wright or F Words Pod. Do us a solid and retweet the show if you would be so kind. If you're hanging out with us on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and that is how your Facebook friends get involved. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, go ahead and subscribe to the A to Z Sports channel, where you can get live streaming content at least 6 days a week. And we know that you will enjoy not only the primetime show, but A to Z Sports in the morning, the A to Z Sports Pick Show, and many other offerings that we have for you as well. And without further ado, now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and begin the show officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Thursday night from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud as always to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford came to my home today to provide me mobile service. Award-winning customer service is what Two Rivers Ford has to offer you. You can find out more by paying them a visit in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Promo code A to Z Sports gets you in on all the action, whether it be MLS, or great promotions on the Tokyo Olympics that are getting ready to begin. I think the opening ceremonies are tomorrow, in fact. Promo code A to Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Brymac Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. And of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage with your dream address without the stress, and the intel to help you sell your home for more at GaryAshton.com. So, F Words Pod starts off the bidding by saying, nuance, it's 2021, Buck. Well, no, listen, you guys are a smart audience. You guys are an intelligent audience. You guys are an understanding audience, which is why I have so much respect and why I enjoy spending 5 nights a week here with you, having discussions like these. Now, this does get into a little more touchy subject matter, but I think that we're all adults and capable of handling it. And I'm going to explain my position, and I invite you to share yours. Today, there was an announcement made, some reporting done by Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network. And it was around noon where the NFL announced that it has just informed its clubs that if a game cannot be rescheduled during an 18-week season in 2021, this is key, due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players, not among the vaccinated, but a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players. The team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss for playoff seeding per sources. Massive implications, this according to Tom Pelissero. Now, Tom also adds that it's worth noting that the NFL and NFLPA also agreed in 2020 that players on both teams wouldn't be paid for any canceled games. All 256, of course, were played last year. but the bold type in today's memo that the NFL doesn't anticipate adding a Week 19 to make up games makes it clear what's at stake in 2021. So this is big news because it goes along the same lines as what we've heard from SEC football commissioner, SEC, just conference commissioner Greg Sankey. We've seen the Big 12 and Big 10 make similar stances. This is going to be par for the course in sports this year. But I want to know how you feel about it. Your Two Rivers Ford take. Do you agree with the NFL? Do you agree or disagree with the NFL's hardline forfeiture stance? Let me know on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We will have this discussion together across the 4 social media networks. Do you agree or disagree with the NFL's hardline forfeiture stance? That is the question that we're asking you. Loud noises, says Donovan Romaine. Yeah, there are probably going to be some loud noises tonight, but that's okay. Dom Odell says, Buck, about to spit that raw tonight. Listen, I know that there was a lot of trolling of me going on the internet today. I was very opinionated about something that DeAndre Hopkins said, and I'll explain that position here in just a second because I don't think people fully understand where I was coming from. It was not a vaccine opinion. It was something to do with DeAndre Hopkins and empty threats that he clearly has no intention of following through on. But regardless, your Two Rivers Ford take. Do you agree or disagree with the NFL's hardline forfeiture stance? Your Two Rivers Ford take, of course, always presented by our friends at Two Rivers Ford, the best in the business since 1983 for a great many reasons. Not only because of their award-winning non-commissioned sales staff, their award-winning customer service, their quality American-made Ford vehicles, and all manner of new ones that are available to you if you go pay them a visit in Mount Juliet. Things like mobile service, where I called yesterday, scheduled an appointment for a Two Rivers Ford service member to come to my house in their mobile service van to take care of my 2012 Ford Escape. They rotated my tires, they changed my oil, they made sure that my 2012 Ford Escape, the one that she's at the end of her rope, which is why I'm looking forward to doing a little shopping next year at Two Rivers Ford. But old sugar, she got taken care of today by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford because that's what they do. They make it about the customer. No pressure when you go through the car buying experience because their sales staff makes their paycheck whether they sell you a car or not. And of course, the quality American-made Ford vehicles that Ford has to offer. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comment section this evening. Let us see. I agree. I disagree with it, but the NFL can do what it wants, says Cody Holzer. This is spot on. And I think that, I think that most people are rational about this kind of policy that the NFL has put into place. You can disagree with it. Of course, that is your right. But the NFL, as Cody points out, can do what it wants. And I'll expand more on that here in just a second. Monoxide, I guess is the Twitter handle, or excuse me, the YouTube handle, says he disagrees. Dadson Worldwide also disagrees. Please keep politics out of sports, says Chris Baltimore. All right, so we got the first one of these tonight. Chris, vaccines aren't political. Vaccines are science. Vaccines are medicine. If you want to make medicine political, that's on you. This is a sports conversation because the NFL has put out a policy having to do with the medical angle of things heading into the 2021 season. This has absolutely nothing to do with politics. Now, Chris, I don't want to jump down your throat if you're saying, please have this conversation without getting political. Of course, we do that every time we have one of these conversations. But if you're coming into the comment sections on our show and saying that a discussion about vaccines in sports are politics in sports, then you clearly have a lack of understanding about what a vaccine is. A vaccine is something that is developed by medical professionals, developed by scientists, applied by medical professionals, something that is completely removed from the world of politics. Chris, if you would like to make vaccines political, that is entirely your decision. But I would tell you that you need to be smarter than that because there is a substantial difference between politics and science. And if you would like to make the science political, that's entirely on you. Metal Madness for Life says, no, don't agree. Lewis Chesney says he's on the fence. I think I handled that pretty diplomatically. So I hope I wasn't too harsh with Chris, but there was inevitably gonna be something like that tonight. Jeff Charles says you give us too much credit, to be honest. Well, no, I mean, I don't. We always have a fair conversation around these things, right, Jeff? You guys, I think every once in a while I'll pop off on somebody who is trying to take the conversation a different way than the one that the majority of us are trying to have. But I think the vast majority of you deserve the credit that I'm giving you. I absolutely trust you guys to be able to have this conversation with me. And I hope that you trust me to be able to have this conversation with you. So what happens when an outbreak occurs among vaccinated players and staff, says Andrew Riddell? A fantastic question, Andrew, and one that I'll get to here in just a second. Now, ultimately, what the NFL is saying here, and what people should know, is that the NFL is a private business. The NFL is not mandating vaccinations. The NFL is saying, you may choose not to get vaccinated. We are not forcing your hand in this regard. We are saying to you, though, that if you choose not to be vaccinated, and if your lack of vaccination causes our business issues, then you will suffer the consequences. And not only will you suffer the consequences, your team, your organization, your franchise, your teammates, your bank account will suffer the consequences. Now, what Andrew says is a total possibility, because we have seen people test positive with the variants that we have, the Delta variant being the most discussed and most studied at this point, at least in this point in the pandemic. We have seen people get fully vaccinated and again test positive based on the variants. I'll expand on that here in just a second, Andrew, but I want you guys to hear from Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network, who advanced the reporting on this in a way that I think is important. Because the NFL is saying, no, we're not making you, but just know, as a private business, it is our right to be able to make your lives hell if you don't.
Both teams, if the game's not played, it's not just the team that caused the outbreak. Both teams would not be paid their paragraph 5 salary, their base salary, that installment for that game. So even if it's the team, you remember teams were upset last year. Hey, it's their problem, and we're rescheduling this game, and we're moving this game around, and it's inconveniencing us. Yeah. Well, on top of that, you're not going to get paid if it's the other team that creates the mess. And by the way, still in this memo, if the other team is not following protocols. Remember, we had some of that last year. That Commissioner Roger Goodell still retains the right, in addition to canceling the game, the forfeit. There could still be penalties in the form of fines, draft picks, whatever, on top of that. So these games could be moved now. That's in the memo as well. Like, you could have a Thursday game moved to a Tuesday or whatever. Remember, we had that last year as well, as they tried to keep it within the week that these games were going to be played. But once you get outside of that, the long and short of this is that the NFL in this memo is stating that they are intending to play the entire regular season over 18 weeks. And there will not be a 19th week. So if you get outside of that week and, hey, we couldn't make it work and we couldn't reschedule it, that game is forfeited. The team that had the issue, they lost. The other team, they win. It counts towards the playoffs, all that stuff. That is the long and short of this memo. But there still could be games that are kind of slid around. They will take into consideration many things as far as whether it's safe to allow that game to be played. Stadium availability will factor into that as well, as will competitive advantage, disadvantage, because you could have a team, let's say you push that game back to a Monday or a Tuesday, and then the other team's got a short turnaround or whatnot. So these are all be factors that'll be factored in, just like they were last year as the NFL tried to figure this thing out on the fly. But they are letting teams, players, executives, everybody know today that we are not planning to add a week to the season to accommodate for games that won't be able to be played and rescheduled within the same.
So that's Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network expanding the reporting, advancing the reporting, saying, listen, say, for example, let's take the Titans and the Bills. The Titans, if this was the same situation, but this coming season as opposed to last, pre-vaccine, say the Titans, a player who was not vaccinated caused the outbreak for the Titans. That game, if an unvaccinated player on the Titans caused the outbreak, the Titans would forfeit the Titans would not get paid, the Bills would not get paid. Everybody would be upset because they can move games, but they're not adding a week to the season as they initially discussed and were prepared to do a season ago. The vaccines are at people's disposal, so they're saying, okay, we're taking away this safety net of a potential week 19 or week 20. We're not interested in that. We're going to play all, or in the case of last season, all 256 games were played. If you cause us to miss a game, then you will not receive what is called your paragraph 5 money, ultimately an NFL player's salaries. Both teams would not receive that paragraph 5 money because there would be no game played. Now, I want to get into Andrew Riddell's question about what happens when an outbreak occurs among vaccinated players and staff, because that's a fantastic question, and I'm glad Andrew brought it up. I'll do that in just a second, right after I tell you guys about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, my favorite sportsbook app. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo getting ready to compete for the gold, and DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer just for you. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code A to Z Sports when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits if America wins a medal. That's code A to Z Sports to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Tennessee only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Promo code A to Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So let's get to Andrew's question, because I think it is an important one and one that we need to talk about. The question that we've asked you guys: do you agree or disagree with the NFL's approach? Now, my position on this would be that I absolutely agree with the NFL's decision to not mandate vaccines, but to take these measures to move forward, even as harsh as and I do believe them to be harsh, even as harsh as I believe them to be. I think that this is the right approach by the NFL. So I'm asking you guys, do you agree or disagree? I will tell you why I agree, but first I want to answer Andrew's question. So we know the punishment is forfeiture if an unvaccinated player causes an outbreak on a team. But what happens, as we have seen across, sports and society, if a fully vaccinated person contracts COVID and an outbreak results from a vaccinated player or staff member? Here is the thing, Andrew, because this is not, the forfeit clause will not be the case for a vaccinated player or staff member. That is when you will see a more concerted effort to move games around. You will see the removal of bye weeks, as happened to the Titans and the Steelers a year ago. You will see you will see Wednesday and Tuesday night football games, as we did with the Ravens and the Steelers and the Titans and the Bills. Why it is not as harsh of a punishment for vaccinated players and staff who would contract COVID is because the NFL is saying, okay, if you take this measure, you have done your duty in helping us, a private business, protect our money. This is what the NFL is saying. They are saying, listen, you have this at your disposal. This thing at your disposal has the ability to affect the money that we make. If you take the steps that we know are at your, are in your control to be able to protect our money and ultimately your money, then the punishments will not be as harsh, because you have done what has been asked of you, what has been suggested of you, not mandated of you, strongly suggested of you. You have done everything within your power to make sure that the NFL makes their cash. But if this is the case for an unvaccinated player, well, then you have taken a decision unto your own hands that has cost the NFL money. And the NFL, as a private business, can dole out the punishments as they see fit. Whether you believe it to be harsh or not, this is the right of a private business, just as it is the right of an individual, of an NFL player, of you or of me, to choose to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. That's the difference in this conversation, Andrew. The NFL is trying to protect their paycheck. They're trying to make sure that the players don't put their money at risk. The memo says, Cody says they would find as fair a solution as humanly possible. And that, they get to determine fairness because, again, the NFL is a private business. As fair as a team having to forfeit, says Chris Paulino. Yes, the NFL has determined that it is fair to the NFL as a private business to cost you money if you cost them a game, because games represent a massive amount of revenue. Here on A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. Do you agree or disagree with the NFL's position on this? Fair enough, says 111 Keefe, but is it right to penalize, those who don't want the vaccine? So here's what I'll say, Keith. Right or wrong, this is not an ethical decision by the NFL. Now, you may wish them to make an ethical decision, but how often have you expected the NFL to make an ethical decision, and instead the NFL chooses a financial decision? This is what it is. It's finances versus ethics. Those are very difficult conversations to have in sports. So no, I don't. What I will say to you, there are plenty of people for medical reasons, for religious reasons, who are not interested in vaccination. I will never and have never, and maybe some of you disagree with this, but as far as I'm concerned, I have made it as I have done my best to not be one of these people who vaccine shames. I have told you guys that I myself have been vaccinated. That was a personal choice by me. It was also going to be a difficult decision for me had I chosen not to get vaccinated for whatever reason, because the NFL sent out a memo to media members saying, you do not have to be vaccinated, but you will not be able to attend training camp. You will not be able to be in a press box for games. You will not be able to have in-person interviews. You will not be able to attend in-person press conferences. I would, in essence, not be able to do my job. I would no longer be of use to A to Z Sports or to 104.5 The Zone. It would be to the detriment of me professionally. Now, I would have done it anyway because I have educated myself on the science. I have talked to medical professionals whom I trust in this regard, and I felt comfortable based on the risks and rewards of vaccination, making that decision for myself. This is a personal choice, just as it is for you. But it is the right of the NFL, who is not my employer, but the place that I do business with, for lack of a better term, to say, yeah, you can make this choice, but we will make it incredibly difficult on you to do your job, because if you choose not to do this, that is your choice. But then it is our choice to be able to tell you that if you make this decision that could affect our money, we're not going to allow you around our properties between the games, the players, the coaches, the facilities. That is our right to be able to do so as the NFL, as a private business. America's African says, I agree with the decision by the NFL. I'm interested to see what the Titans percentage is at. It's north of 50%. I do know that to be so at this point, and the reporting by the Associated Press and Pro Football Talk has borne that out this way. Alternative, Rodrigo Blankenship under center tossing pennies, says King Mofaka. Not quite. This ain't got jack shit to do with politics, guys. Good damn grief. That's what I'm saying. It's something that I never understood, how people could try and turn vaccines political, but we find a way to turn everything political these days. But again, that's a personal choice. That is not where the science of vaccines comes from, of course. The NFL testing is flawed and was flawed all of last season. Well, I mean, you could say that societally, right? I don't consider the COVID-19 testing to be perfect by no stretch of the imagination. And by the way, even as a fully vaccinated media member, every 2 weeks, I'm going to have to receive a COVID test to make sure that I'm not putting the Titans staff members, the Titans coaches, the Titans players at risk by allowing me in their facility, because you can still, of course, contract COVID, some variant of COVID, even after you have been fully vaccinated. I myself got the most effective of the vaccines. I got Pfizer. That's what the city of Nashville was giving out in terms of free vaccinations, and I'm fortunate to have done that and have not experienced any side effects either the day after, the day of, or at this point, I think I've been vaccinated since the first week of May, and still no issues. Whereas COVID took me down. I think you guys remember last August right before training camp, in fact. This time last year, I contracted COVID and I was down bad for about 4 days. And really, I wasn't right for about 2 weeks after that. I'm one of these people who's about as low risk a candidate for COVID as humanly possible. I'm in my late 20s now, 28 as of this week, but it still hit me hard. And this was something that, I was an anomaly among my demographic, but I do recognize what it did to me as opposed to what it does to a lot of people who are in my same age range, who are asymptomatic. I was symptomatic. They should just be in a bubble like the NBA was, says Alonzo. The NFL's too big. It's impossible, Alonzo. It really is. For the NFL to try to do something of that scale. It's so much bigger than hockey, so much bigger than basketball. The NFL would be impossible to get done in a bubble at this point. I got mine. My phone gets better service now, says Elizabeth George. Yeah. And Bill Gates is always aware of your location, right, Elizabeth? That's how it goes. Testing is trash. Vax is the same, but we need it. LOL. Okay, says Easy. Listen, I'm not telling you that you need the vaccine. I'm telling you why I made the decision to get the vaccine. Every other private business like the NFL gets to make their own determination on this. Easy. I don't know where you work, and you may work at a place where they do not require vaccinations. And if you make that decision, entirely you're right. But again, if you do work at a private business that has vaccine policies, then it is the right of the private business to be able to hold you accountable for your decision makings, because then you put them at risk by affecting their bottom line. And that is something that private businesses are never going to allow. Buckethead says higher total by week 18, the number of forfeited games or the amount of cats you'll own by then. So, man, that, Bucket, I did try and rescue another one. I found so for those of you who don't know, and this is going to make me sad. For those of you who don't know, I have two kittens. They're about 6 months old that we rescued, two strays that were outside. They're about the size of the palm of my hand, not even the full size of my hand. Their names are Frankie and Leo. And I was out picking up trash in my neighborhood this past weekend, Sunday, I believe. And I saw another little kitten about the size of my palm, because I live in an area where there are some stray cats. And, if it's like Bob Barker says, if you don't spay or neuter your pets, that happens. Forgive me for getting distracted. But since Buckethead brings it up, I haven't talked about this publicly. So we were able to get the little girl in a humane trap, and we took her to the emergency vet. We named her. Her name was Lucy. And Lucy was staying at my girlfriend's apartment. At about a month old, Lucy was, and she was fine. She was starting to get comfortable. She was incredibly sweet. I've got videos of her on my phone that I decided to keep. But Lucy, in the middle of the night, on the first day that we had her, or the second day that we had her, she started to have what we thought were like seizures. Unfortunately, for an animal, it sounds like a howl, but she was all but screaming, and having these awful seizure-like symptoms. So I was able to get her. It was the middle of the night. It was about 11:30 on Monday night. So Monday night leading into Tuesday morning, I was at the emergency vet, and they took her into the emergency vet, and they told me that they were going to have to put her down at a month old. They were going to have to put her down at a month old. And I've never experienced anything like that in my life. Now they told us it was because they believed, because she was a stray, because she had been brought in from the outside, that the behavior looked to be potentially rabid, potentially rabies. And that's entirely possible. You have possums, you have raccoons out in downtown Nashville, or in the surrounding area around downtown Nashville, and a little kitten like that off on her own could possibly be exposed. They told us that it was the first time that they'd ever seen anything like that, but they did not, as a staff, feel comfortable handling her and putting the staff at risk. And so, unfortunately, Bucket, I had to after a day with little Lucy, I had to sign paperwork to have her put down. So that was not a great way to start my birthday on Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. at the emergency vet, signing away the little girl. But I'll be honest with you. Have I ever cried? I know I've sneezed on camera. I'm starting to get a little dusty, but I cried like a baby, man. I really did. I've never had something like that hit me that hard. Forgive me. But that really broke my heart. So either way, I know I took that a dark way, Bucket, and I'm sorry about that. But that was really tough, and so I'm sorry that I got into all that with you guys. But yeah, that is where the genesis of that conversation came up. I'm sorry to take it down that road. Anyway, so I was reminded by that because they sent me her little, instead of sending me the ashes because they're not sure, they cremated her, and instead of sending me the ashes, they sent me a little paw print, what do you call it, little paw print, like, not, you know what I'm saying, like a paw print imprint that I got in the mail today. So that's, so I'm sorry to take it down that route. Buckethead, you got me crying. Damn. I'm sorry about that. Here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. Sorry for that, guys. I'll keep it moving. So let us move on in that regard. I did not think it was gonna go down that route. Here on A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. But yeah, so the number stays at 2 cats. Shit, I wish I had a tissue or a napkin in here or something like that. I didn't think it was going to get. I've sneezed on camera before, but this is the first time that I've cried. All right, let's talk about cancel culture, buzzwords. Who gets an NFL or who gets a game canceled first, a game forfeited first? Is it the NFL or is it college football? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We'll have that conversation together, and we'll try and get back in the swing of things. Let's see if I can't get the show back on track. Which sport sees a football game forfeited first? Is it the NFL or is it college football? Let me know on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We will have this discussion together on the A to Z Sports Primetime Show. While you guys do that, I'll tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress is what the Ashton team provides to you. Don't sell without the intel is how you get things done with the Gary Ashton team. Nobody understands the Middle Tennessee or Nashville real estate market better. Nobody has better intel than Gary Ashton. Check them out at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, or check them out online at GaryAshton.com. Who sees a game forfeited first? Will it be college football or will it be the pros? Because as we're talking about the NFL and their policy on forfeits, the SEC particularly, now the Big 12 has had the same position, the Big 10 as well. I have not seen the same from the Pac-12 or the ACC, but I imagine they are along the same lines. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey came out at the start of SEC Media Days, I think that would have been on Tuesday, and said that before the NFL made this decision, that the SEC would be following along the same party lines on a forfeit procedure.
And we're following a developing story in college football where the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, opened up SEC Media Days with an announcement that games this fall will not be postponed or rescheduled if a team is unable to play due to COVID issues. Sankey said that 6 of the league's 14 teams have reached 80% vaccinations, but that number needs to grow rapidly.
We still have roster minimums that exist, just like last year. What I've identified for consideration among our membership is we remove those roster minimums and you're expected to play as scheduled. That means your team needs to be healthy to compete. And if not, that game won't be rescheduled. And thus, to dispose of the game, the forfeit word comes up at this point. Our teams are going to have to be fully prepared to play their season as scheduled, which is why embedded in my remarks is the vaccination motivation.
So that's SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, 3 days before the NFL made this decision to not go the route of forfeits. Now, this is different, right? The college football world does not have the luxury of forfeiting games and determining whether they be among vaccinated players or unvaccinated players, vaccinated staff or unvaccinated staff. The SEC is drawing a hard line in the sand, saying we will not reschedule games. We will cause teams to forfeit if they are not able to field competitive rosters on Saturdays. College football does not have the same luxury as the NFL does in that regard. So what I would say to you, and I think a lot of people agree with this, is what we see forfeited first, a college football game or a pro football game. I don't think there's any question that college is the correct answer because of the just all of the things that you are exposed to on college campuses, whether you're partying, whether it's, young people. And I say that now in my late 20s, young people, but younger people, college age people are less likely to, take the proper precautions to make sure that social distancing is in place. Now you are required, a lot of universities are requiring you to be vaccinated before you go to campuses. And that is something that may mitigate the risks among the athletes as well, because that also applies to college athletes. But I do think that college campuses are so much more high risk than we would see the NFL. There are so many more college games to be played. There's so many more universities, so many more opportunities to see a game be forfeited. I would think that we would see it in college first, between college and pro, which sport sees a game forfeited first. Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. He is an empty shell. It just means more, says Old Vol. Maybe most teams will have a cold the day they will play Bama. That would be lit. Love it. College definitely, says Real Nick Wright. Can't stop kids from partying. That's so. Bruce Norris asks me about what happens if the outbreak comes from a vaccinated player. Bruce, we talked about that earlier, so feel free to go check out the replay of the show, or we do make it available to you via podcast after the live broadcast concludes. I don't want to go back and retrace our steps on that. Amy says, my alma mater, Virginia, requires vaccinations to live, learn, work on campus. My alma mater, Indiana, doing the exact same. I know Vanderbilt is requiring the same kind of thing. I think you'll see a lot of universities go the same route. Kids making money in college. Oh, watch out! Party time, says Sheila. Yeah, it's going to be. You got Bryce Young in Alabama already having endorsements for around $1 million. Around $1 million at this point. What I would say to you is that college, there's so much more risk for exposure, and something that I think will continue to come up. So let's put a bow on this show so I can get out of here without crying again. You guys got me in my feels tonight. I was not expecting that. Let's do the Brymac bounce back. Who in sports needs to bounce back this weekend? Let me know on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We will have this conversation together. Which person, which team, which entity in sports, which organization, whether it be the NFL, the NCAA, whoever you want to submit for whatever reason, who needs to bounce back in sports this weekend? Let me know in the comment section, and we will have this discussion together right after I tell you about the people who present the bounce back. It's Brymac Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. Brymac can do commercial HVAC work. They can do duct work. They can improve your air quality. They can take care of your home, your residence as well. BRYMAK, Brymac Mechanical, Brymac.com is where you go. So who needs to bounce back in sports this week? Let me know across the social platforms. Buck needs to bounce back, says Susan Solnick. Yeah, I'm gonna go have a cocktail after this and enjoy my what remains of my night before I do one more radio show tomorrow and then get into my last weekend before training camp. I need to bounce back in a big way because I don't have time to get emotional as soon as next week hits. I don't have time to sleep. I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to do anything but cover the Tennessee Titans and football season for you guys because it will finally be upon us. St. Louis Cardinals, says Lewis Chesney. I am not aware what's going on with the Cardinals right now, but Lewis says they need to bounce back. USA go for gold, says Chadwick. Man, the United States women's national team got smacked 3-0 by Sweden the other night in a way that I was shocked by, was absolutely shocked by, to see after the dominance that the United States women's national team has always shown. And one of the most, probably the best team, the best thing that the United States the Olympic teams have going for it. So USA needs to bounce back on the women's soccer side of things to be able to get right. So Boogeyman Gaming says the Nets and the Braves. I don't know. The Nets, the Nets don't have to bounce back until basically October. The Braves, the Braves have started to turn things around a little bit, but I'm not aware of where they are in the NL East right now. Looks as if these university figureheads have forgotten there is a constitution. Listen, old ball, I understand, but this is something that has been litigated before about mandating vaccinations. It has not been unconstitutional. It's been proven in a court of law over and over and over again that it's not unconstitutional to mandate vaccines for college students who are coming to campus. So, they haven't forgotten that there is a constitution. There's just precedent that allows them to be able to do this. So no, they haven't forgotten about it at all. I guess you do, says Brad Lifford. The Big 12, says Shrike. Yes, the Big 12 held a conference call. Texas, Oklahoma were not in attendance. It's as clear a sign as any that we will see they are coming to the SEC sooner rather than later. Caleb Farley, says Kenston Farmer, reports are that his back has bounced back fully and he's a go for training camp per Teron Davenport. Well, I had not seen that report by T. If TD is breaking this news, he needs to put it out there. I haven't seen that at all, Kenston. I'll text with him after this to follow up on that. But if Teron's breaking that kind of news, he needs to have it out there like fast, quick, and in a hurry because nobody else has got that. I haven't reported that. I haven't seen Karski report that or Glennon or anybody else. So if TD's got that, he needs to put it out there on social media because I don't think anybody else knows that right now. He said it today on Stillman and Company. Well, this is the problem. And I love Jared, but Teron's got to go on a Teron. I love Jared and I love Teron, but Teron is unfortunately tied to a radio station with a much smaller listenership. And I don't just say that because I work for the other radio stations because I see the ratings every month. So he needs to get that out there. He needs to get that out there on social media because Teron's got a hell of a lot more reach than the game does. Pretty cool to have constitutional scholars in the chat, says Ben Buquest. It is if a kid claimed religious exemption. Yeah, but you could do that in any walk of society, old ball. So it's, that those exemptions have always existed. This is not new. SSJ Titan X just screaming, do not get the vaccine. Relax, you're going to be fine. Hopkins threatening not playing due to the vaccine. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is my bounce back candidate of the weekend because he looked like an idiot. He looked like an idiot today, tweeting idle threats about this NFL policy. And I'll read the exact tweet so I don't take his words out of context, even though he did delete the tweet. So it is worth noting. Never thought I would say this. This is from DeAndre Hopkins' official Twitter account, but being put in a position to hurt my team because I don't want to partake in the vaccine is making me question my future in the NFL. This is a ridiculously stupid thing said by DeAndre Hopkins, not because DeAndre Hopkins doesn't want to get the vaccine. I have no issue with DeAndre Hopkins not wanting to get the vaccine. Again, entirely his personal choice. But to make an empty threat like he's going to sit out, like he's going to retire from the NFL is completely hollow. It has zero meaning. He deleted that tweet, tweeted freedom later like he's Ted Cruz or some shit. And it wouldn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on, but like what? What are you doing? It's got nothing to do with your freedom. It's just you're making empty threats and everybody else is calling bullshit on you, right? So DeAndre Hopkins needs to have a bounce back weekend because the stupidity on the internet is mind numbing. Nobody is saying that DeAndre Hopkins shouldn't make his own decision to not get the vaccine. What they're saying is don't make empty threats. NFL players aren't willing to miss games to make sure that they get more guaranteed money during CBA negotiations. DeAndre Hopkins is not going to take an individual stand and miss games or retire from football because the NFL is making it harder for him to do his job if he doesn't get the vaccine. It's one of the dumbest things that I've seen on the internet. In fact, it may be the dumbest thing that I've seen on the internet. Hey, Nuke, if you missed week 1, I'm all for it, says Ronnie Sneed. Kenston Farmer says Delaney Walker. Can Stillman just have a permanent spot on the Primac bounce back? Yeah, that's there is that. So let us citizens have the right to take it or not. Of course, Old Vault. Nobody is disputing that. But the universities, as private institutions, most universities are public institutions. But as a private business, as the NFL is, universities operate as private businesses, but public institutions. They have the decision on the business side of things to make the rules as they see fit. And the rules are get the shot or don't come to college. And that's a good way to end our primetime week because I'm out of gas. I am actually tired. For the first time in a long time, I am tired. So I'm going to take this opportunity to rest before training camp hits me in the face next week. I'm going to be doing this radio show from training camp all week long. We've got exciting stuff coming for you. The radio show tomorrow will be fun. We'll have Ryan McGee from the SEC Network. We'll have Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. We'll look forward to having you along for the ride as well from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. And thanks for always showing up, showing out, and providing us great content and great conversation. I can't lie to you and say that I'm not tired tonight because I am in fact tired. But we got to play the video anyway because it's the weekend and I need that Mississippi Mass Choir. No!